Good morning, everyone. Max Price says something I forgot to tell you. That is a little part of my brain. It is not working so well. And if I, in the middle of the sentence, stop and look at you and ask you who you are and what you're doing here, it'll pass in a minute. I wish to thank the University of Cape Town for considering my work good enough for my name and that of my beloved alma mater, UWC, being linked more deeply to your university through this award. We shall treasure it always. I must also consider my families and the entire range of students and staffs who worked with me in 8 institutions, but especially UWC. The slogan I created for UWC, and it's still there, is from hope to action through knowledge. From hope to action through knowledge. Now this slogan speaks to the individual, it speaks to the institution, and it speaks to the world. And said that we must continue to work to hope, because, as Coleridge says, work without hope draws nectar with a sieve, and hope without an object cannot live. I add to this that hope without action is a fantasy, and to achieve any success, hope and action must be combined with the best knowledge possible. Graduates, your graduation today confirmed the fact that your objects were in place, and that the action and the knowledge followed. I wish to congratulate then all of you. I was told this morning that this morning belongs to the humanities. And Stanford University in the USA say that the humanities can be described as the study of our people process and document the human experience. Since humans have been able, we have used philosophy, literature, religion, art, music, history, and language to understand and record our world. These modes of expression have become some of the subjects that traditionally fall under the humanities umbrella. Knowledge of these records of human experience give us the opportunity to feel a sense of the connection to those who have come before us, as well as for those who are with us now. You may be interested to know that in 2003, UWC was chosen to participate in Belgium University's University Development Program. This thing is sliding up and down, so I'm trying to work on 2 pages of papers. This problem gave UWC 10 years of partnership and with all of the Belgian universities. With it came a large amount of money to be used for the program. From the beginning of the program, all 18 universities who were already on the program had opted for a science program. And the expectation in Belgium was that UWC would do the same. But this was not to be, as our choice was for the humanities. The question to me from inside and outside about why we chose not to take the science route and did not have anything to do with, and wondered if it had anything to do with my tertiary biography where science did not feature. My answer to that was that science can and will supply us humans with wonderful knowledge and will enable us to do marvelous things. But we must first engage with ourselves, with our people, and acquire as much knowledge about us and the world we live in, and as quickly and thoroughly as possible, so that we can get together on the basis of strong knowledge, make the best decisions for everyone. Because of our decision to choose for the humanities of the University of the Western Cape has served as a custodian of our memory and a beacon of our desire for freedom. Through its long history, UWC has championed the importance of the humanities in redefining our human condition. It is to the humanities that UWC looks when it seeks to reaffirm commitment to community, national belonging, peace, and freedom. Given this long commitment to the humanities, UWC was one of the first institutions in the new South Africa to establish a world-class center for humanities research, and which is now counted as the national flagship of the Department of Science and Technology and the National Research Foundation. Needless to say, humanities faculties in Belgium, who had never had any of the money given to them, had a big party. It was their maiden project, and we were their first recognition of the humanities. Without the best knowledge available and used for good purposes, catastrophic things can happen and will happen because of the absence of sense-making. Some examples of the absence of sense-making in South Africa that caused and which continues to cause extreme damage to our future are the following. First, the land challenge. Second, the absence of national unity. Third, the low quality of school education. 3, the HIV debacle where shame, politics, and culture trumped science. The absence of skepticism, that where one just accepts that one is told without challenging and engaging. The belief from 1948, when the National Party gained power, that about 10% of the people of our country could hold the excluded 90% in bondage forever. The retaining in 1994 of the racial labels which divided a struggling nation rather than dual districts. I don't know how to speak about labels, white, black, and so on. They say perhaps at that moment when they were thinking about it, they said, let's take them all away and say South African. The idea that destroying is building is one of another challenges, and corruption and nepotism another. And from me personally, the destruction of strong communities like District 6, where I was born and raised for 25 years, and where not a single person went to bed at night hungry and without shelter. And now for the future, a few words especially to the young. I have a proposition that from the perspective of human history, all humans alive today are probably the second most important cohort of humans who have ever lived. That might sound very silly, but why? Because you are living in a time that is unprecedented. Per Dallin spoke of the challenges of 10 revolutions occurring simultaneously at this time. And the 10 are the knowledge and information revolution, the population explosion, globalization, the economic revolution, the technological revolution, the ecological revolution, the social cultural revolution, the aesthetic revolution, the political revolution, the values revolution. All of those are with us today, all of them. He argued that humankind will be so tested by this combination of incredible changes on so many levels that our cultures will have to undergo the kind of paradigm shifts last experienced in the 16th and 17th centuries when science began its challenge to all existing forms of knowledge. Our current paradigms, he said, cannot contest with these monumental changes and win. And Robin Mohan says it this way: humans living in a cultural revolution and in a world of war, violence, and social upheaval are impelled as never before to ask the hard questions of the meaning of historical existence. Why do we exist? Since the time of Adam and Eve, or perhaps their other fellows, the Homo sapiens has had a fairly easy ride. So much so that there are more than 7 billion of us on a planet moving to 8 billion faster than we want it to be. Just think, in 1927, we had just 2 billion. There is also a sea of research which declares that we have overshot the boundary of what this earth can give us. We are already in desperate trouble and cannot easily succeed in avoiding conflict over a string of things like poverty and migration on our own. As with water, if we start now, we may just make it bearable, but the paradigms that we are now still using cannot help us. They must be changed, but change is a complex matter, as William Harvey found out in 1628. Now, who was he? He was an English physician who made seminal contributions in anatomy and physiology. He was the first known physician to describe completely and in detail the systemic circulation and properties of blood being pumped to the brain and the body by the heart. He presented his findings to his peers. But what remains, with this opening statement, but what remains to be said about the quantity and quality of blood which thus passes is of so novel and unheard of character that I fear not only injury to myself from the envy of a few, but I tremble lest I have all mankind at large for my enemies. So much doth want and custom that become as another nature, and doctrine once sown, and that has been struck deep roots, and respect for antiquity influence all people. His peers jeered him, they vilified him, he lost almost all of his patience, but he was right. It has been suggested that we near now, may well be the last generation which can prevent a population crisis of runaway poverty, malnutrition, restricted economic growth, shortages of primary health care services, family planning services, housing and education. This generation, that's you, must bring back the concept of humanity, a concept that speaks of love and care. It must also accept the fact that hope must be followed by action, and together use the best knowledge available while seeking even better knowledge. And every generation has its burden of making sense of their social and natural environments. They must try to understand the past and also to project into the future if they are to survive. This is by definition the work of the university, because a university stands between the past and the future. And as Castellet says, if knowledge is the electricity of the new information international economy, then institutions of higher learning are the power sources on which a new development process must rely. I leave that to you, graduates.